Alright, in this video we're going to be going over solving equations number 3. So we looked at how to solve a bunch of different type of equations. The only equations that we haven't really looked at is what happens when we have x on both sides of the variable. So what I mean by that is, let's take a look at example A1. Notice that we have x's on both scales. We have x's over here on the left, and we have x's over here on the right. Remember that the goal for solving the equation is to get x by itself. So one thing I can do is, if I remove an x on the left, notice that it's no longer balanced. To keep it balanced, I can remove an x on the right side. X isn't quite by itself yet, so let's go and do that one more time. Let's get rid of an x here and an x here. And notice that after I remove x on both sides, you see now I have an x that's by itself, and this singular x is equal to 5. So at the start, we didn't know what the value of x was. These were a mystery. That's kind of the definition of x. X is an unknown. We don't know what it is, but we're able to remove x on both sides because we know that all of these x's weigh the same. All of the x's weigh the same. So when I remove it from both sides, it keeps the scales balanced. Removing from both sides keeps the scales balanced. So even though I don't know what x is, if I remove the same amount on both sides, my scales are going to stay balanced. All right, here let's go and take a look at another equation where we have to solve for x with x on both sides. So I'm going to keep removing x, and if I remove an x on one side, I'm going to do the same on the other. We can basically treat these x's as the same as just any other tile. Just like any other tile, I can drag them off the mat. Okay. So with that, looks like I took away 4 x's off both sides. So 5 x's take away 4 x's, I have 1 x left. I still have 2 negatives, 2 balloons. Right? All of these x's are gone, and I'm left with 8 weights, 8 positives. And from there, now I can solve for x just like any normal equation. I can add 2 to cancel these out, to cancel out these negatives. If I add 2 to the left, let's add 2 to the right to keep it balanced. And 8 plus 2, this x weighs 10. All right, let's go ahead and try the next one. Here, I can remove x off both sides. So if I remove one, gotta remove the other. Remove an x, remove an x. So after removing 2x on both sides, these 4 x's shrinks down to only 2x. I still have my 7 red balloons, my minus 7. All right, the x's over here are gone. See, I removed them. I still have a 1 over here. So now let's go ahead and solve for x. To get x by itself, I need to cancel out everything next to it. So let's cancel out each of these negatives with a positive. So I'm going to need 7 positives to cancel out all those negatives. Okay. After these cancel out, whatever I do to the left, I need to do to the right. So I need to add 7 over here. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now I'm left with 2x equals 8. And from here, if I have multiple x's, see the x is being multiplied. I have multiple x's, more than one. I can divide these into 2 sections. Divide these ones into 2 sections. So what's 8 divided into 2 sections? Notice that I can fit 4 in each of these groups. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. X equals 4. All right, let's go and move on to our next example. One other thing that we haven't talked too much about is how do we deal with a negative x? You need to be careful here. This isn't a negative balloon. Balloons are right here. This is a negative x. So again, we can treat each of these x tiles just like we can treat a weight and balloon. If you have a negative x, we can cancel it out with a positive x. Those that negative x and positive x cancels out. But whatever we do to one side, we need to do to the other. So I'm now down to 6x and 3 balloons equals 9 positives. From here, I can cancel out the minus 3 with 3 positives. I cancel out the negative with 3 positives. So I'm now left with 6 x's. Right? Whatever I do to one side, I need to do to the other. So let's add 3 over here. Right? 9 plus 3, we're at 12. 6x equals 12. And the final step, again, if I have multiple x's, notice I can divide them into sections. Dividing them into 6 sections. I'm going to take all these and divide them into 2 sections. So 6 sections. What's 12 divided into 6? Let's go ahead and see. If I divide these into 6 sections, right, each section is going to contain 2. See, when I divide on both sides, x equals 2. Let's take a closer look at this problem. So what were the steps we took to solve this problem? Again, the first thing, notice that we added an x on both sides. Right, you can see, you can see that right here. We added an x to cancel out. We added an x on both sides. From there, we added 3 to cancel out the negative 3. Again, notice that these 3 cancel out. We added 3. We also added 3 somewhere over here as well, plus 3 on both sides. And the last step, notice how we're dividing these. Notice how we're separating these into 6 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And over here, we take all these tiles and you see how we're separating them into groups. So the last step is to divide both sides by 6. And we get x equals 2. So what's the strategy for solving x on both sides? We can cancel a negative x with a positive x. Okay, let's go ahead and do a few more examples. Moving on. Here, let's go ahead and solve for x. One thing you need to be careful of, this is not a balloon. I have 2 x's, 3 negatives, 3 balloons, and I have a negative x right here. So I know that I can cancel these out, because positive and negative x cancels out. And if I want to get x by itself, I can remove this one over here, and remove this one over here. So I'm now left with negative 3 equals 4x plus 1. Right, x is not quite by itself. I need to get rid of this positive. So I can do a negative on both sides. So now I'm at negative 4 equals 4x. And from here, if I have multiple x's, notice that I can divide them into 4 groups. If x is being multiplied, I can divide it into 4 groups. I can see that each of these x's are going to weigh 1 balloon. 1x equals negative 1. Okay, next one. So here is asking us, should I add 5x to both sides, or should I add 3x to both sides? If I add 5x to both sides, these are going to cancel out, but something else is going to happen over here. And if I add 3x to both sides, these are going to cancel out, but I also have some things over here. So the most efficient way would be to add 5x on both sides. Notice that if I add 5x, all these negative x's are going to disappear. Okay. But if I add 5x's to the left, or sorry, if I add 5x's to the left, and you add 5x's to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, x is not quite by itself. Let's go ahead and cancel out these negative 2's. All right. Oh, sorry. All right. So why did we do that? If I add 5x to both sides, right, I'll be left with positive x. This is, and from here, again, after adding x to both sides, I had negative 4 equals 2x plus 2. And from there, I have minus 2 on both sides. Negative 6 equals 2x. And from here, I can divide these into 2 groups. 6 balloons divided into 2 sections. Each is going to have 3 balloons, or 3 negatives. Right? Negative 3 equals x. All right, the next 4, you might not see this part, so don't worry about this part. This next 4 have to do with solving the equations without looking at the scales. So here again, I can remove an x on both sides. Right? So again, oops. Notice that 2x, if I take 1x away, I'm down to 1x. The x over here is gone. And to solve x, let's cancel out these positive 11 with negative 11, leaving me with 4 minus 11 is going to be negative 7. Okay? So again, ignore this part. You might not have this part. So again, 4x plus x, I'm at 5x's. From here, I can subtract 2x's on both sides. All right, and now this is just a normal two-step equation. I can minus 3 on both sides. I can divide both sides by 3. All right, we have 2 more practices. All right, from here, 7 negative x's, 3 negative x's. I have a bunch of red x's. So that's going to be negative 10x. Still have my 15 weights over here. And negative 2 minus 3x, 2 red x's, and 3 more red x's. I'm going to have negative 5x. All right, from here, let's go ahead and add 5x to both sides so the things cancel out. And finally, to get x by itself, I can divide both sides by 5. What's 15 divided by 5? That's going to be 3. And a positive divided by a negative is always going to be a negative. All right, last problem. So here, again, we have 7x and negative 6x. Notice that these are going to cancel out. Those negative 7 and negative 16, those are going to combine to get negative 23. Right, and we still have the 1 plus 4x on the other side. So x is almost by itself. Let's get rid of this x minus an x on both sides. Negative 23 equals 1 plus 4x. Oops, plus 3x, sorry. All right, let's get rid of this positive 1 by minusing 1 on both sides. So again, 23 negatives and 1 more negative is going to be negative 24. And finally, we can divide both sides by 3. Okay, so how do we solve equation with x on both sides? We can treat x's like any other tile. We can add, remove, and cancel out. And that can help us solve the equation. If you still have questions, please let me know. And thank you for your time.